Professor Nez from NezNation is with us today, and we are going to have a conversation right here coming up next on Saturday morning Marketing Smarties. Hit it, Tim. Good day, everybody. Welcome to Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties. My name is Roland from MinMax Media, bringing you the minimum you need for maximum impact. And I'll be glad to explain that to you if everyone's scratching your head going, minimum you need for maximum impact. Well, it sounds pretty good, but what the hell does it mean? So we'll get into that someday. But this is a special show today, and I'm happy to take my time and making sure that everybody understands the conversation is going to be worthwhile, but I'm not exactly sure where it's going to go, because this is the energy boost that we get from the right people at the right time, and we've got him today. So Tim and I are going to have a lot of fun. By the way, who is Tim? Tim is Tim Longwell. I almost call him Longfellow after you guys have been jamming on that. Tim Longwell
is be an official change soon.
Yeah, you get to pay the $500 fee, Peter.
Sure, I got it.
Tim, we'll raise the funds, man. If it's really necessary, we'll raise the funds.
I love it.
But anyway, Tim Longwell is my right-hand man with the show, and he does a lot of things. So I am graced by his accompaniment to produce this show. So thank you very much, Tim. Tim, come on board and tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody. Am I on? Yeah, it's on. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties. I'm Tim Longwell with Longwell Art Studios, where we help you reignite your creativity for your better health and happiness. Come join us over on twitch.tv/LongwellArt and have some fun.
Cool. And thank you very much. And Tim, we refer to him often as the comment wrangler, because he's going to be watching comments going on in the comment stream on our event page, which is on DIYLivestreamingShow.com. And then if you go to that page and just scroll down a little bit, there's going to be a big white button that says "Watch Marketing Smarties Now," and that brings you right to this broadcast. So I've got a cat in the background scruffling along and running around in the background, and there's no way I can silence that. So I'm very sorry. But anyway, as I said, today is kind of a special show, and I don't want to delay it any further. Professor Nez is the epitome of what we talk about all the time. Newbies, get a camera and a mic and express yourself. And he's the penultimate expresser on video in live streaming. So Professor Nez, come on board and tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Welcome to the Smarties Show.
Wow. Thank you so much for having me. That was an amazing introduction. Penultimate. I mean, try to say that 5 times in a row. I dare you.
I can't do it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much. Well, I am truly honored to be on this show. I think that what you and Tim Longwell, not Longfellow, are just doing amazing work. And if you don't know who I am, if you're new to who I am a career coach, executive resume coach. I'm a podcast host, a live stream host. It'll take too long if I go through the entire list. It's kind of crazy. I need to probably tone it down a little bit, but I'm also a writing professor, taking what I've kind of garnered from the education space, trying to bring that and translate that to the online space. My tagline is bringing a little bit more humanness to this digitalness. And I truly mean that in the most sincere terms. I think that sometimes we get a little too much coconut and yachts, as I like to say, where everybody's happy-go-lucky, free, making $1 million. Hey, join me on Instagram. You can buy a yacht too. What are you waiting for? And I think bringing a little bit more reality, I think bringing a little bit more realness, rawness, vulnerability is actually a beautiful thing, because social media has gotten this, especially live streaming, sometimes gets this, this kind of negative connotation or negative description as being a place where we're kind of deteriorating communicatively. And I disagree vehemently with that. I think it's definitely not the medium, it's the user. And so that's what I bring to the table. And I'm just honored, absolutely honored to be on this broadcast with you guys. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And that is exactly what you've been saying. The reason that you're on this show, because one of the things that Tim and I do is we are attracted to people who express themselves sincerely and from some stand of honesty. And I get that from you. When I watched your videos, that's something that is definitely, it's a given. I mean, you were talking to me about feeling the vibration. You're sensitive to when you watch someone or hear someone or talk to someone communicate, you can tell where their heart's at. Yeah. And that's an important thing to me. So if nothing else, people will say, watch this show and says, well, I don't like Roland much, but that's the real him, you know? That's fine with me, because I want to be the real me. Mm. I don't want to be the thing that I think that people want to see, or the thing that I think is going to make them smile, or thing that's going to make them buy. That's ultimately not me. And that's why I'm not as good as an internet marketer as some people are.
Well, it's impossible to uphold, though, Roland. It's impossible to, it takes great effort to be somebody, right? But it takes zero effort to be yourself. So trying to maintain that facade, trying to maintain and sustain, this image of, Roland is this perfect, Tim is this, or Nez is this. You can only do that for so long until there's cracks, right? And people start seeing the real you. It's going to come out eventually. It's impossible to hide that. So why hide it? I mean, why not? Here's what's funny is I told my class this the other day, if you guys don't mind, really quickly. So, we were talking about content, creating content, and we're going to get into a lot of cool stuff on this show. We were talking about creating content on Instagram and different platforms, especially dealing with live streaming. Most platforms now have incorporated live streaming. I wouldn't be surprised if Pinterest, which I'm not even on Pinterest, starts going live soon too. And I know we're both, all three of us are very adamant about live video and live streaming. So we were talking about creating content with my class, and one student said, well, I only like to see people, one student posited this, that only happy, only positive things get reach. That only if you create this veneer that you are all, encompassing and all, joyful and happy and just radiate this positivity, that's the content that really gets the most reach. I actually disagreed with that. And I got a couple of students to agree with me on this. I feel that the more you're vulnerable, the more that you're who you are, the more that you communicate like, hey, I've had a really bad day today. I'm going to talk about it. And maybe this could be a beneficial live stream. We'll talk about what I learned from this or what I didn't learn. I'd love your thoughts. People relate to that. I mean, there's a reason why the best picture of the year every year at the Oscars is usually some kind of dramatic, emotional, somebody going through a struggle. There's a reason why, the blues, the blues music has survived through the years. There's a reason why, because it's real. It displays that human buffet of emotions, right, on full display. And I think I've found this translates to content strategy and content marketing, if you will, especially live video. The only criteria is you got to be real. I think that's the only criteria. I think when it's all like, hey, I'm perfect, I'm Nez, and I always got my stuff together, that's bad boogie. You're just not going to get the same. I don't think you're going to get the same kind of reach. So whether or not you like, being you or not, I think it's impossible to sustain that artificial self, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And, the bottom line is the people are, whatever degree that you are pretending.
Yeah.
The people are not going to believe you.
Yes.
They're going to sense it and they're not going to believe you. So at some point, do you want to go around the internet with a question mark trailing you? It's like, yeah, but I just don't know about this guy. Or do you want to be like, oh yeah, he's the real deal. He's right on. You know, I don't agree with everything he says, but when he says what he means, and he means what he says, and I'll respect that about that person. I'd rather be that guy than the person making the millions. If the millions means he's got to sell himself out or be something that he's not.
I mean, I love play acting. I love creating in all its facets. And I know Tim will back me up on this too. You know, theater is beautiful. I think, you know, this whole idea of sometimes if you keep saying be real or be real, I think it kind of sounds bumper stickery after a while, right? So it depends on what your purpose is. This goes back to Aristotle 2,000 years ago. What is your purpose? Who are you? And what type of audience do you want to reach with that message? So if you're somebody who's doing a comedy channel, let's say you're doing a live stream where you're doing bits and skits, or you're doing a live stream where you're, you know, elucidating Hamlet soliloquies, whatever it is, you know, you want to try to show your acting chops. You're creating music, you're creating art, beautiful art like Mr. Longwell. Well, you know, then do it. That's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with creating that artifice, right? We love drama. We love comedy. We love fiction, right? So as long as that's aligned with your purpose, as long as, I mean, look at Andy Kaufman. I mean, a lot of people watching might not even know who Andy Kaufman is. Andy Kaufman never gave away who he really was. You know what I mean? I mean, but he created a career. He created a legend out of that. So yes, be real, be who you are. But if being who you are is being something of a, you know, illusion, or something intriguing, or something, you know, mythical or mystical, then that's beautiful too. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's when you're really trying to do something that just people can smell it cooking. People are really smart. People, if I think the biggest mistake, and I tell this to my speech students as well, Roland and Tim, if you underestimate your audience, you're headed for a crash. You're headed for disaster. Don't underestimate your audience. They can smell that stuff cooking.
Absolutely. So this is moving very fast, and we're getting some momentum here. But I didn't want to not acknowledge some people that I'm really happy are here watching and participating in the comment stream. So I noticed the first one to show up today was Aaron from Stroke TV.
Aaron!
By the way, Aaron and I are starting, we're already into our second episode of Stroke Talk Q&A. Awesome. And we're now asking the stroke community for their feedback and getting them in the conversation. So that's what we're starting with that.
Hey guys, make sure you send me links. Send me links to all of your shows. Not only do I want to watch it, Aaron has been just an awesome, solid dude, a great creator. Love his live stream stuff. I want to share it all over. So please let me know when you guys have launched that, created it, or go live, and definitely keep me informed.
Dude, you are going to be very impressed with where Aaron's come from and what he's doing online. He's really come a long way. But anyway, there's Aaron out there. Barbara Quick made it today. Hi, Barbara. She's my sweetheart, and she was the first one to ever come into the Hangouts live streaming with me. We were the only two in the Hangout when I got started over 3 years ago. So welcome to Barbara. Glad you made it. And we have also Kathy Pop is out there. Hi, Kathy. How you doing? And also, yeah,
great comment.
Absolutely. And We Wake Vandor Rao is out there, and appreciate you showing up, sir. Thank you very much. And now we do have a comment, and Tim is bringing it on. So what's up?
Kathy Pop says she was just having this very conversation last night about being honest in your business and leave the too good to be true, you know, make 6 figures in 90 days with our program system or some other BS out of our marketing. We were discussing all the get 6-figure clients for coaching programs and probably how fake they are.
Well, you know, I have a general blanket theory on all these things that are outlines for success, or the 7-step formulas, et cetera, yada, yada, right? They work for some people, mainly because the people are so persistent and diligent about their pursuit that whatever they do is going to work. They happen to use a 7-step formula that got them off their butts, and they worked it, and it worked. But does it work for everybody? Hell no. It's in a major degree a waste of time for 90% of the people. And but the producers of the show, or the formulas, or the packages of the training, they make money off of 100% of the people who buy. And that's what they're in the business for, is the 100% of the people that buy their formula, not the success stories, the few people that make it. So it's kind of like the facade of like, yes, this can be done, but there is no freaking guarantee. And just know that unless you are really going to be that special person that's going to try hard and work with it, this is not going to do you that much good. But thank you for your money. And let's be honest with that. And when I can find a way to be honest with that, I will charge you too. But at the moment, I'm too busy figuring out who I am and put that out, because that's more important than what I can make off the money until before I am who I am. So I've got an idea for where I want the conversation to go, and it has to do with a post I think that you made, maybe a video of about a month ago, Professor Nez.
Oh.
And the concept was, now let me just get my notes because I'm not as brainy as I could be. The concept was anxiety and overthinking.
Yes.
And you dug into this and really attacked it. So maybe for the purposes of our listeners and for Tim and me, you could go over that and into that and let us join in on a little bit of that conversation. But if you would bring that concept up and give us the meat of what you were dealing with, because the concept of anxiety and overthinking, I think that most of us do it at least sometimes. Some people do it all the time. And we definitely need to address that. It's like something that we have power over, but we don't have power over.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is, thank you so much. And, you know, just to be really, really transparent and honest, I'm not a clinician. I'm not a doctor, right? So I don't want to say that you need to listen to me only, or you need to understand this is the only way to deal with it. I am somebody who, you know, I try to communicate and convey my ethos and my purpose from an experiential standpoint, not an intellectual standpoint. So this isn't just something that I've studied, even though I've studied the mind for over 27 years. I experienced debilitating anxiety and depression as a young man, pretty much from 19 to 29. For 10 years straight, I was living in hell, but I'm very proud of going through that hell, because I would never have changed that. It was literally every single day from 19 to 29. I had my Hamlet moment. To be or not to be was a question that roamed in this cavernous hole that you see, that some people call a skull, every single day. I studied, I researched, I experienced the hell, and thank God I was able to come through that fire. And I think that's what gives me, hopefully, a certain level of relatability, a certain level, hopefully, of credibility. It's just my perspective. I've taken every single drug on the planet dealing with anxiety and depression. None of them worked for me. If anything, they made me feel terrible. At one point, I was taking one medication prescribed by a doctor that gave me seizure-like symptoms, where I felt very, very sick for a long time and afflicted. And I just dove into my chest. I dove into my chest and I researched the crap out of everything with this dude right here. And I discovered a lot of different ways. I discovered, hopefully, some, I can't say tactics. I can't say strategies, because they're not tactics. They're not strategies. I just investigated for myself. I inquired deeply, vehemently, and in earnest about what was going on, who I am, the big questions, why this is happening, what does this thought implicate, why is this thought happening? So both from a scientific standpoint, but also from just an experiential standpoint and a sort of introspective standpoint. And so I've written 7 books about this on Amazon. My latest book, you can see in the background here, is, if I may, just really quickly, it's called The Conversation with Fear. I got a great review from Mastermind Chronicle. And it's kind of told in the in the sort of guise of a play. It's almost like a one-act play. It's a real short book. It's a micro narrative. It's about 80 pages long, but it's all about my experience and what I came out of and how I dealt with it and how I approach it. You said something about control, which is really interesting. You said a lot of the times we don't have power, but sometimes we do. Here's where I kind of, what my sort of experience and what my research has indicated. You can't control anything that happens to you. You can't control thoughts. A human being has about 50,000 thoughts a day. 90% of them are rubbish. They're garbage. So, and this is all, look all this stuff up. Don't take Professor Nez's word for this. Look all this stuff up. Research for yourself. I believed a lot of dudes in white coats when I was young. And, you know, I hate to say this, and I'm not kind of impinging on the medical world, but a lot of them were just full of crap, right? I'll never forget when I was about 26 and I'd really been knee deep in my research. I actually went to a therapist, and I'm not afraid to admit this. There are some great therapists out there, great psychoanalysts out there. And it was beautiful because it was our first meeting, and I'll never forget her name. It was Dr. Cosgrove. It was our first meeting, and I explained my whole story, and she said, "Get up, and I don't want to see you in my office ever again." And I said, "Whoa." I was kind of like taken aback. Like, what do you mean? Like, what happened? She said to me, she said, "Look, you know more about this than I do." And I'm a doctor. She said, "Everything you're doing is absolutely beautiful. Everything you're doing I have nothing to offer you. I don't want to take your money." It was the first time I felt so beautifully, I felt confidence that maybe, you know, just maybe I can figure this thing out on my own. I mean, you know, one of our great philosophers, Ralph Waldo Emerson, said self-reliance is the ultimate currency, right? So I felt very emboldened by that, and I felt very confident moving forward. And I feel compelled to share this with the world. I feel compelled to share my perspective. And so that video is really a culmination of, you know, my 30 years of dealing with this, what I've read, what I've researched, not just intellectual, but more importantly, experiential. Does that make sense? I'm kind of blabbing here. I'm sorry, guys.
That's all right. And of course, you said video. I think you were referring to the book, actually, your 80-page book. And I'm going to have to read.
Well, no,
that.
my video too. The video that you talked about,
that
overthinking and anxiety. So I have an entire playlist, if I may, just really quickly, Roland. I have an entire playlist. It's funny because my channel initially started as a mindset channel. It's kind of evolved now that I'm working for LinkedIn, and now that I'm doing more consult work and self-employed and entrepreneurial work. I'm doing more kind of how to grow your business, how to brand yourself. I'm doing social media marketing stuff. I'm talking about career advice. So it's grown. But, you know, here at the epicenter of all that, and I'm sure, Tim, you and Roland would agree with this, if you don't have the mindset right, if you don't have the proper approach from an internal sense rather than an external sense, none of it means anything. You can have all the money in the world, right? You can have all the prestige and influence in the world, but if your inner game is faltering, you know, we always talk about our outer game. What about our inner game? Your inner game is, to me, much more prescient, much more significant than your outer game. And that's what really that's the backbone of all of my content. It's all up here. It's all up here.
I love that. The heart of what I feel about business and all this stuff is reflected in what Steve Martin did in his advertising for what he has for his masterclass, his acting masterclass, because he comments in this little 1 minute or 2 minute long video where he's promoting his masterclass. And he says, the people come to him and they're asking him, how do I find an agent? Where do I get my headshots done? And blah, blah, blah. How do I do this? How do I do that? And he was contemplatively thinking about that. He goes, shouldn't you be wondering, how do I be good in the first place? And I thought, that's it. That's it right there. It's like you're worrying about advertising and promotion and conversions and exposure, but are you worthy to have that exposure? Are you ready to face the crowd and say, this is me, this is what I bring, how's my product, how's my service? Yeah, I'm ready to show this to the world. How good is it really? And so I turn people back to themselves and say, Sure, I can build you a website. Sure, I can help you with a promotion. But just offhand, is your product or service worthy enough to be on page 1 of Google search? I mean, should it be there?
And here's
the
another
answer is
thing
often
too, Roland,
no.
is we don't ever talk about this in the university. I'm a university professor. I teach all over the planet practically. And we're not talking about these things. We're talking about accounting. We're talking about finance. We're talking about numbers. We're talking about dates. We're talking about, now I know I'm not trying to say like, who I'm this ultimate professor. There's a lot of amazing teachers out there who are actually teaching real world applicability. But I know for a fact, having 3 degrees, right, that I could literally light it up with, I could put a flame to all my 3 degrees compared to my experience in the real world. I mean, they're just pieces of paper, right? I'm proud of them, and you should be proud of them too if you have pieces of paper. But if you rest all your laurels on a paper, on a document, you're in big trouble. And so we're not talking about this dude right here. We're not talking about what happens in your chest, what makes you pulse, what puts locomotives in your veins, what makes you feverish and itchy. We were talking a little bit about this before going live. What are you obsessed with? What is it that you can't not do? You know what I mean? So, I mean, we're not talking about this in the university. We're just saying, okay, let's create the ultimate lemming. Let's just absolutely, Noam Chomsky is somebody who I respect a lot, great thinker, one of the great thinkers in the 20th century. He said the universities are afraid of individuals. They're afraid of creative thinkers because of what happened in the 60s, the explosion. A lot of folks probably are too young to even remember this, but what happened in the 60s? What happened in the counterculture revolution? What happens if people get too smart? What happens if they understand that the media, what they're feeding them, what happens when they actually think on their own toes? You've got a society of people who just won't buy what you're selling, right? Instead of consumers, you'd actually have creative thinkers. Aristotle said that's your ultimate currency, your ability to create and think creatively, right? So we're not teaching this in the university, but I know people are starving for this. I know from the reaction of my students are riveted in my class. My students get very upset when I cancel class, which I don't like to do, but sometimes I have to. I know by the responses, because this is what I felt. I understand what it feels like sitting in a chair and hearing somebody pontificate, okay, who is not relating to them. Does that make sense, Roland?
Absolutely. And I don't want to stop where you're going with this at all, but we're actually at the midway point of the program. And I wanted to make sure that if people want to get in touch with you, now is the point where they're probably feeling like, how do you get in touch with
Stop
Professor
babbling,
Nez?
Professor Nez. Will you stop your babbling?
And so I'm going to stop this babbling for just a moment and show you. Here's how one way of getting in touch with Professor Nez. His hashtag to find him is going to be hashtag NezNation. And I didn't see that you had a website, but you've got things on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and where else?
Yeah, I got a website. It's professornez.com. But yeah, I would really love it if everybody watching could subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. I'm Professor Nez across all social. So yeah, I would love for you to, you don't even need to go to my website. So that's not a big deal at all. If you could subscribe to my YouTube channel, because this is the kind of content that I create. So I want to be authentic. And if you're interested in more stuff like this, career advice, mindset mastery, videos about communication, discovering who you truly are and how to share that with the world, you got to come check us out, because we are just bringing it every single week. I pretty much produce 1 to 2 videos every week.
Absolutely. He's a prolific producer of videos, practices
and a prolific babbler, But
where else can you babble but by yourself on YouTube? So that's where I found you. That's where I follow you, and that also on Facebook.
Thank you.
I connected via YouTube and Facebook. That's the way I stay in touch with Professor Nez.
And go subscribe to Tim Longwell. Go subscribe to Roland. You guys, these two guys, they are the real deal. I've been around for a while. Okay. This isn't my first rodeo, folks. And I'm telling you right now, these two gentlemen who are consummate pros, you gotta dig deep with them, because they're bringing, talk about bringing some humanness to this digitalness. They are doing it, and they're doing it really well. I have utmost respect for you two dudes.
Well, thank
And
you.
I don't respect anybody. I don't respect anybody.
I know
I can vouch for that. Any doubts? Watch.
I don't just throw my respect like some, very casual net.
And the fact that we are so involved in the conversation is causing me to ignore some of the people in the stream. So I will go back after the show and reread and go through all the comments. And
can we read them now? Because I can't see them. Can we read them now?
Oh, well, yeah. And as a matter of fact, if you have enough screen real estate, you can go to DIYLivestreamingshow.com and find the show as it's streaming right now. And of course, if you go there, you could click on the video, but it'll start playing. Then you'll have a horrible reverberation going on in your headsets. And
mute it. I can mute it, right?
Yes.
Okay, I see the chat. Okay, good. I see the chat.
Yeah. Fantastic. And these people are talking to you, so they're going to comment about what we say and what you say, and that goes on continuously during the show. And that's Barbara, one of the things I love.
Yeah, Barbara, so sorry to hear about your so sorry to hear about your son. Yeah, I mean, this is if I may, just really quickly, guys, can I address Barbara's comment, please?
Yes.
Sure. So let me bring it up on screen for us.
Yeah, bring it up on screen if you don't mind. And Vivekananda, good to see you too, my friend. Thank you. Kathy's fantastic. I've seen Kathy. Here's Barbara says something really amazing, and I'm going to go back to the Google Hangouts here. Did you put it up yet, Tim? Well, anyway, I'm gonna just read it if you don't mind.
Right there. We can now share it on screen in a moment. There, Roland.
We saw something similar to your life from the outside. Our son didn't make it out of his severe depression, and we lost him just shy of his 44th birthday. So I applaud you for finding your way out. My deepest heartfelt condolences. I really apologize. I feel terrible, Barbara. Sorry for your loss. And that's what's happened. That's what's happened. We're in 2018 and they claim that all this medication is helpful. And don't get me wrong. I know some people, the medication works for them, and that's fantastic. And I'm not a doctor. So always take this information, for a grain of salt, because I want you to always check with a doctor first. I'm just telling you my experience. And Barbara, a lot of people, it's the same way. They never made it out. They never made it out. And I think the reason is because we don't talk enough about this. I really feel like having a conversation about what happens in here is not talked enough about. I think more and more people, especially now that we're being bombarded by media in all directions, we're being bombarded by consumption in all directions. I think we're truly living in an anxiety age. I think more and more people are feeling less secure. There's more of this surveillance state that's kind of dominating. There's a lot of things we can talk about, but just to kind of wrap it up, generally speaking, it's become this sort of anxietal time for people because they're feeling like they're always on, or they're feeling like they have to. I have friends for whom the meds have worked, but they didn't work for our son. Same here. The meds definitely did not work for me. I would say, I'm going to be bold here and audacious. Try to, see if there's anything that you can do prior to taking meds. And if that's not working, then by all means, see a doctor. But what I'm talking about is, self-inquiry, mindfulness, self-investigation, understanding who the true you is, that you are not your thoughts, misidentification, things that I've been studying for 30 years. And this is not hokey. It's all practical. This is not new age stuff. It's very practical stuff. Because if you don't know who you are, if the only thing, let me just say this and I'll wrap up. This is the only thing that gets in your way of success. It's the guy that lives inside here, whose favorite word is can't. That's the only thing that gets in your way of success. People like to blame their parents. People like to blame their spouse. They like to blame Donald Trump. It has nothing to do with any of that stuff. It's the little guy in here. If you can transcend that dude, you will win, guaranteed. Because you will give less of an F about what anybody else thinks of you. You'll give less of an F, because if you know who you are, as Aristotle said, neither friend nor foe can ever touch you, because you know who you are. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to explain yourself. It's a beautiful feeling. It's a freedom feeling. I would say try self-investigation. If you need a little bit of help, check out my channel. But there's plenty of other stuff out there. You don't even need Professor Nez. And then try going the pharmacological route. But I would always say try something that doesn't require medication first. Does that make sense, you guys? And Barbara, again,
yeah.
And again, Barbara, my deepest heartfelt apology. It's just terrible. I'm so sorry for your loss.
To put a capper on that, to Barbara Quick is just an amazing lady. She recently just lost her husband too, passed away. He had dementia. He was getting old a bit. And she's, they were both up there, but the transition, regardless of the reason, how and why and when, is not easy. So not only, losing her husband, but then having the hardship of family members. Barbara's story is absolutely amazing. And I've urged her to write books about some of the family members and so forth, because if you read the timeline and read the basic overview of what she has experienced, part of it you're not even going to believe. He's like, you got to be kidding me. This happened, and then this happened. You got to be kidding me. And that's the essence of what Barbara's dealt with. And yet she is the nicest lady that you'll ever talk to.
Wow.
And she's very encouraging, and she's very helpful, very much a Samaritan, a Christian thinker, and a wonderful lady.
That's fantastic.
So for all this to have transpired, and for her to even bring that up and relate to it like this, I really appreciate your contribution, Barbara. And that's pretty much why you're in my life. And thank you very much for contributing part of your story to today's show, because this is the type of stuff that makes a difference to me. Tim, you have something?
Yeah, some of our viewers are experiencing some difficulties with the chat. It's coming and going for them. After several refreshes, it didn't work for Roz Bundy, but now it's working right. Be aware that I know Twitch has been having some problems because they've been doing a lot of updates, and YouTube is doing a lot of updates. It may not be anything with the chat as far as the program or the website. It may very well be they're doing work on the servers and at YouTube, and we apologize for any inconvenience it is causing you. I would recommend after the show checking to make sure in your Chrome updates that you have the latest update version. That may also be causing a problem. Sorry for the technical break.
Yeah, and just to clarify, because we have chat streams going on in a couple places, the YouTube fixes and the Google fixes are two different things. So if you're commenting on our website, the comment stream is supplied by Google Comments, and that's on Google servers. I think it's connected to Blogger and that side. But whether it is or not, it'll be separate from the YouTube problems. So if you're in the website, those things will be separate from the YouTube side. So if you're having problems in one or the other, I have absolutely no control over the YouTube side. Plus the fact that at the end of the show, the YouTube comments disappear and then reappear from that point forward, so you can comment after the show. But the live comments don't stay. That's why we encourage everybody to come to the website for the VCP events plugin side and comment over there, because those comments hopefully are evergreen. But anyway, this has been an amazing conversation, and dealing with the concept of what people tell us and what we should believe and how we take action in response to those things. Because so much of the time we rely on somebody that we say is the specialist and say, I'll ask the specialist and hopefully he's got an answer for me and I'll do what he says. But I mean, we're running into specific situations that I'm having conversations with people in Aaron's stroke community and places like that. When people say, the doctors say this to me, they say there's no hope. What the hell am I supposed to do? And from there, it's like, geez, all I can do is maybe put a smile on your face for a couple of minutes and then let you go your way. I might be able to brighten your day and cheer you up and give you a little bit of hope, but then you walk away with your problem. And so this is the type of thing that eats people as they're living. And so I really am concerned with the concept, because so much of it, we can't help everybody. I realize that. But so much of it is self-imposed. So the leadership that we have any kind of influence over is to affect people to the point where, look, you have to want to get better. You have to want to improve. You have to want to not have the anxiety and not overthink things and keep it more simple. And certainly don't make up a story to tell yourself something that's going to make you sick. Don't tell yourself things that are not true or that are made up or illusory. So go ahead, Tim, and you have something?
Yeah, that's a key point, and Professor Nez has touched on it as well. It's important that you don't lie to yourself, but you need to realize that you've got two choices. You can let whatever's wrong with you and what you've lost win and control your life, or you can say, I'm going to do everything to the best I can, and this problem, mental, physical, whatever, is not going to win. But you have to decide that, and you have to decide that you're going to beat what you're fighting, because no one else can do it for you, and neither can a medicine.
Well said. Well said, Tim. We've been having conversations lately in the Stroke Talk community, and we boiled it down because Aaron asked me a question the other day. I was like, where do you take these people? How do we guide them? How do we find the turning point, the actual point of flipping the switch from negativity to positivity? How do we find that juncture and indeed flip the switch? I said, well, nothing happens before the desire is there for change. And so if you're wanting to change, if you're tired of where you are, if you're tired of the pain, you can't figure out the quandary of your life, that's the point in time where you say, I need to do something. I need this to change. So what we're looking at with this conversation today, Professor Nez, your concept, as far as I can see, really focuses on the concept of mindset mastery. And it's the root of all of our difficulties, really, because it's not what's happening. It's what we're thinking about it that causes us all the things of barriers for success and slows us down and gets us thinking in the past or imagining the future, but we're not living in the present. So bring us up to speed with what you are endeavoring to do with mindset mastery and all your campaign.
It's just literally just me sharing my story. That's it. I love doing it. I love talk. It's something that we cannot deny as human beings. I talked about this with my class as well as on live streaming too. And we and talk about a beautiful tool. When I say sharing your story with the world, I can't think of a better tool than live streaming. So isn't it the case that, or maybe it's not the case, that when you share your story with the world, when you share your story, it should be something that's authentic to you. It should be something that you care about. It should be something that you feel in your bones you need to share. And as far as like goals with my mindset mastery channel, it's really just to hopefully communicate very clearly. I'm not trying to convert anybody. I'm not trying to convince anybody. As a matter of fact, I don't even know if I went in there with the mindset of I want to help people. I think that would kind of come off a little funky. For me, it's like, it's really important to me, and maybe there's some kind of macro kind of philosophy with this too. The more that I try to be the more that I attempt to work on who I am, the more that I attempt to be clear with my message, the more that I am honest and earnest with who I am and what I bring to the table, it seems that it has this beautiful effect. The fragrance of that truth, it permeates. and other people get affected by it, and other people gravitate towards it. And, you know, this is sort of what I feel when people say they want to change the world or they want to go help people in other, you know, fantastic. That's great. But if you don't know who you are first, you're not going to help anybody. Right. So you need to work on you. And actually what's kind of ironic is the more that you work on you, the more you're actually helping the world. It's usually people who kind of are cognitively dissonant or who create static, who are not in touch or not in tune with their kind of true self. Those are the people who can really cause a lot of damage for the most part. But again, my purpose, my goal is to just really illustrate my experience as clearly, concisely, and effectively as I can. And a beautiful bonus is that I get beautiful comments and feedback saying, Nez, if it wasn't for your channel, Nez, if it wasn't for your video, I don't know where I'd be. I had a great comment the other day saying, Nez, I shared this with my father, and he and I cried together watching it because we related to it so much. That's the power of the human spirit. That's the power of sharing your story. That's the power of reaching deep inside and not being afraid. Actually having the gall to say, my story is worthy of being shared. That takes a lot of gall. You know, I mean, that takes some serious audacity. Do you have the audacity to share your story with the world? I guarantee you, because you're going to get a lot of bad stuff too, right? You're going to get a lot of judging. You're going to get a lot of criticism. You're going to get a lot of whether it's vocal or whether it's silent, right? You're putting yourself out there, and that's a big, brave thing to do. I say, first find out what it is you want to get across. First, find out how you're going to get it across. You know, and to quote what you said earlier, Roland, first worry about being good. And then you can worry about changing everything else. And then you can worry about changing the world. And then you can worry about, I'm going to help people. And I need a PR agent or I need all these ancillary things that, can kind of remove you from your original intent. So that's my biggest goal. That's my biggest hope. And to quote what Tim and I were talking about prior to going live, it is damn fun doing it. I have so much fun. Like
Yeah.
I enjoy doing this. Like I could talk to you guys for 7 hours straight. If I didn't have sick kids, downstairs, I could talk to you guys for 8, 12 hours straight, and I wouldn't even skip a beat because my heart thumps. It thumps for this stuff. What makes your heart thump? Create that. Just don't take the safe route. Safe. I'm going to be an accountant. I'm going to have the 2 kids. I'm going to have the minivan. I actually have a minivan. I'm proud of my minivan. What makes your heart do this? What makes it want to pop out of its chest? That's what you should be doing.
That's so cool. What makes your heart race? What makes your pulse increase?
Yeah.
And what gets you excited? That's related to the things that you love. And that one of the most common expressions that we use in the show is do what you love, and eventually you'll get paid for it. Even if the money is even if the money is not the objective, if you just don't focus on the money and say, I just got to do what I love to do. Other people are going to see this, and it relates to what you were saying earlier. If you're vibrating in this enthusiasm and love and giving atmosphere, and it's permeating the universe, people are going to feel it.
Yeah,
they're going to feel it, and they're going to
One thing that is absolutely infectious is enthusiasm. It's the most contagious virus on the planet. Even people, like, for example, just let me give you a very specific example. I had a student come up to me who was just shaking with fever, shaking with excitement. Feverish excitement. And they were talking about some kind of video game and I'm not a gamer. I don't care about video games, right? I did when I was a kid, and I'll play like Super Mario Brothers with my kid right now, but I'm not like a gamer, right? But I had to listen to him. I could not listen to him. Why? Because his passion was oozing through his pores. You know what I mean? There's nothing more infectious than enthusiasm. You could be talking about, how to clean your rug. And if you do it with passion and you do it with energy and vigor, people are going to be tuning into that stuff. And when I say energy and vigor, it doesn't have to be like maniacal energy like Professor Nez. You know, my wife is the exact opposite of me, but she owns the room with her energy. It's a very subdued energy, a quiet energy, but it speaks to her enthusiasm about certain topics and certain things. You don't have to be maniacal. You don't have to be obnoxious like a train wreck like Professor Nez. You be you, but bring that energy. Find out what makes your heart thump, and then literally you dive deep, head first.
And the best salesman is the person who loves what he's doing and promotes that. That's the best salesman.
I've bought stuff from salesmen I know I didn't need, but I'm just so impressed. I'm like, damn, you're a good salesman. I don't even need this product, but I'm going to buy it just to give you kudos. And actually, I would say this, if I may, Roland and Tim, the most creative live streamer is the best live streamer. The most creative mother is the best mother. The most creative artist is the best artist. Not that we're comparing. The most creative salesman is the best salesman. The most creative software developer is the best. I think the common denominator is tapping into that creativity. We can't all be Mozart. We can't all be Shakespeare. We can't all be Picasso. But every human being is endowed with the ability to create. So tap into that.
Excellent. And I wanted to string this together. I've had this thought several times, but people do not realize what their story represents. People have doubts that their story is worth hearing or telling. The people have lived their life and they don't realize that their experience of surviving from age 0 to however old they are, they don't realize that that was a challenge that if you examined was like, that's a miracle in itself. And like Barbara Quick's story, your story, my story, Tim's story, Aaron's story, all of us have a story. And when you start telling your story, people will say, good grief, I didn't realize that about you. You know, there's more to you than meets the eye, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's like the classic scenario here is like, why does Roland sit sideways on the camera? Why doesn't he ever look at the camera? Why does he sit sideways? I mean, dang, even his profile picture is sideways. What the heck? And it's like, well, I'm a hemiplegic in a wheelchair. And people don't realize that because it's not a focus of what I am or what I do. And it's not important to the message. But that's the same thing is going to happen with everybody you meet. Because when you start talking to them, you're going to realize, really? Well, what about this? I didn't realize that about you. And you find something about the people. And when they start telling you more about themselves, you go, dang, your story is an amazing story. And they're thinking, oh, it's just what I went through. No big deal, you know. And they're not used to telling people because that's usually human nature says you just got to dampen that down and hide it a bit and not flaunt it and not talk about it. No woe is me stories. So you don't talk about the hardship, the real experiences that make up the life of who you are. You don't talk about those things. And yet there's so much more behind the person. And individuals today are being encouraged to express themselves. Get a camera and a mic and express yourself in an age of live streaming video. And if you do express yourself, you're going to find that, wow, I'm being honest about my story and people actually want to hear it. So that's the bridge that we're going to cross. Everyone's going to find out, or I should say more people are going to find out that their story is worth hearing. And Tim has another comment that's coming through. Let's see what he has.
Yeah. Aaron with Stroke TV says he engages with countless stroke survivors worldwide, and it's very common if you have a stroke for the medical community to put you on antidepressant medication. He was extremely disconnected from his stroke that the antidepressant meds made, and it made that disconnection unbearable. He had to quit them 3 months into them. Now deal with life all natural. He's so grateful to be alive.
Love you, Aaron. Aaron's the man.
And that's a reality. They don't teach people how to move on from this point despite it. Even in physical therapy and rehab therapy, because I've been through all that, Roland's been through all of that for different reasons. but they don't teach you how to get on with your life. They teach you how to function.
Yeah.
Here,
Well
now
said.
take this pill so you can live with what you can't do. And that's not a solution.
Not only that, it's like, take this pill so you can look like the rest of us. And sometimes that's not the actual goal. Sometimes it's not the goal. And what Aaron is discovering is he went through a horrendous thing. He had an aneurysm, and 3 weeks later, he had a stroke that left him in the same, basically the same condition that I'm in. And that was 7 years ago, and mine was 6 years ago. But I have been doing nothing but expanding and flourishing since then. Now, Aaron's journey was a little different, but at this point in time, I've connected with Aaron at a point where he is just so enthusiastic. He is so overwhelmingly empowered to express himself that it's very hard to keep the reins on him. And I'll use you. I'm going to use you, Aaron. I'm going to use you as an example because it's demonstrative of the power of what you have, and that's going to bring that out. That I call Aaron Ready Fire because he forgets to aim. Okay, so we're talking along. Like we'll be talking along and discussing something that he did. He posted
Sounds
this
awfully similar.
he designed this graphic, and he'll send it off to me and say, here you go, man. Here's what I just posted to the world for in the X number of thousands of people. We're getting out there. I say, you misspelled the word such and such. And he goes, oh no, what do I do? Because he doesn't clearly prove everything. He's in such a hurry to express. And he's developed some skills that are beyond so many people who are thinking about learning how to live stream and thinking about.
I can relate, Aaron. Trust me.
Yes, and he's not thinking about those things. He's doing. Yeah. He's the master at doing. He is not letting anything stop him, and that's the beauty of his power. That's the power, and he is coming from a very similar place that I am right now, and he's doing what he's doing without the training, without the experience, without the years in front of the microphone that I've had, or the ideas of video editing that I've had. He's doing it right behind me. He's striding with me now, and that's how we're producing the show. So he's exemplary of what we're talking about here. You have the desire, express yourself, and that's what we're talking about with Mindset Mastery. You got to reach down first to discover who you are and what you want and what you are loving, what you express, what you want to express. And let's start with that. And it doesn't matter if you're only broadcasting to a handful of people, but if you're sincere and you're doing your best you can and you're expressing yourself from the heart, it's going to grow, because that little group of people are going to say, I really like what I feel from this person. Let's tell a couple more people and a couple more people. And after a while, you build a fortification, an alliance of people supporting a vibration that you started. And that's what we're talking about. Live streaming and expressing yourself and doing all these things and not being caught by the concept of overthinking, anxiety. Those are choices that we make to accept that, and they are not required. We don't have to live there. So another comment.
Rose Bundy is having so much trouble. She's having to post in YouTube chat. And she says, and what other hidden or out of sight issues that people are working with physically that are dealt with similarly as Roland lives with? Everyone does have their story. Roz's sister has a disease that keeps her in chronic pain, which can be debilitating. The only outer evidence that she has is just the deformed hands as the disease tightens skin.
You know what? I have a perfect answer to this. And I mean, not that this was a question, but a perfect kind of example of this, because kudos to you, Roz, beautifully said. People thought I was so confident, people thought I was putting on a really good show. in my 20s when I was going through absolutely the hell of this dude right here. And people had, it wasn't in plain sight. I didn't have a physical visual, or never mind physical, just a hyper visual deformity or hyper visual disability. It was all in my head, but I was a walking, talking, crawling, scouring. I was a panic attack with legs. I mean, that's all I was. I was living inside my head 24/8, and it was a nightmare. It was like a nightmare reel played on repeat over and over again. And I tried my best. If it wasn't for my parents, I might not even be here right now, because the only reason I didn't do anything heinous or crazy was I knew it would destroy my parents, right? So I actually thought of them. And I was resigned at 25, 24 that I'm just going to have to live like this for the rest of my life, or at least until my parents die. It kind of reminds me of that Woody Allen movie, Hannah and Her Sisters, where he says, I can't off myself because then I'd have to kill my parents. I'd have to kill my uncle who lives in Brooklyn. It would be a bloodbath. So what she's saying is so prescient. It's so interesting because so many people thought like, oh man, Nez is as cool as a cucumber. Nothing gets to him. I've actually even had comments like, how do you do it, man? You always seem so confident. You always seem so, in my from 19 to 29, it was a huge act. It was just a huge act. I was in severe disarray internally. So yeah, and I think what we can take away from this, if I may, gentlemen, you never know what somebody's going through, right? You never, ever know. You may think, somebody's a complete jerk or somebody's a complete a-hole. You may think that their activity and their actions, are just grating on you. You never know what they may be. You may think that let's just take it simply. You may think somebody's ignoring you. You may think, as a matter of fact, perfect example. I have a real world example. Tim, I said this to Tim. I said, Tim, hey, I haven't seen you around in my live streams and I miss you, man. I was taking that kind of personally. I really was, actually. I'll be 100% honest with you guys. I was like, man, I hope Tim, I sent him a message on Messenger to check out our podcast. He never responded. And I was taking that personally for a little while. I was like, man, I hope did I make Tim upset, or what did I do to Tim? Talked to him, of course, right prior to going live. And, he had some things come up. He's busy. He's a human being. Hello. Who are you, Nez? The world doesn't revolve around you. He was going through some stuff, right? And he was experiencing a busy time in his life, both professionally and personally. It has nothing to do with me. So very well said, Roz. Yeah, you never know. I think the takeaway is you never know what somebody could be going through. So be a little bit more aware, be a little bit more empathetic. And I truly believe this. I've done videos about this. The less you judge others, a cool, beautiful byproduct of that is you judge yourself a lot less. And that's just a pretty world to live in, if you ask me.
I think that's wrapping up what this show is all about really well. I would tag it briefly with, we don't need to jump to conclusions, and we do need to bring the love. So if you're out of touch with somebody, or you feel something or sense something is an issue, get in touch and express your love and leave it at that.
Yeah.
And don't worry about it. Don't add to it, or don't imagine and create something that's not there, because that's what overthinking and that's what worrying and all the anxiety is. It was worrying about stuff that's not going to happen, probably not going to happen. And we spend a lot of energy doing that. So let's focus our energy on the things that matter and what we love and where we want to express ourselves. And Nez and Tim and I have achieved the point of our lives where we are profusely expressing ourselves. And we encourage others to get a camera and a mic and express yourself, because it doesn't take the age that we have accumulated to start doing that. So we're going to wrap it up. Thank you very much for Professor Nez for joining us today on this wonderful conversation. And the people in the audience stream and the comment stream, I really appreciate all of you very much. And I will be rereading through the comments and getting back to everybody. Thank you so much for your contributions to build this show today. And we're going to be saying goodbye from Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties.